We're very fortunate to have Rebbitzin Abby Kurza with us, who's actually Rabbi Dor Birnbaum's sister, who's going to be leading our learning today. So thank you very much, Abby.
Pleasure. Well, people have often told me that I'm just like the female version of Dor, which you can all judge for yourself, because I really don't think I am, but you know, I'm the only girl. So yeah, it was very nice that he asked me to do this. So as I said, I haven't actually attended, so I hope, you know, I get the general gist. But from what I understand, we're just going to dive in. We're going to read through the chapter. So that's chapter 27. So I understand that you all have the paper in front of you. Yeah. Okay. So humanity has a destination. History is not endless. We are headed to the destination of a redeemed world filled with blessing. One of the basic principles of our faith is belief in this final redemption for humanity, in the assurance of an abundant, peaceful, and godly world heralded by the Messianic era. So this is like quite a deep, it feels like quite like an esoteric concept here we're talking about. So this idea that we're headed in some direction, we're on a journey, not just as individuals, but also as humanity. And that's part of our faith. That's a part of our tenet of our faith, is belief in this as a structure. Okay, that there is going to be this final redemption, which colloquially, Mashiach, right, the Messianic era. So human history, according to the Talmud, is modeled on the 6 days of creation, followed by Shabbat. Each day of creation represents 1,000 years of history, with the 7th millennium of history being a Shabbat-like era of redemption for all of humankind, when, as our prophets proclaim, the world will be filled with the knowledge of God as the waters cover the sea, a time when all conflict, famine, and suffering will end. So I think what he's referring to is, I kind of like to think about it as sort of concentric circles, that we have a week, right, which is the 6 days, which ends with Shabbat. But we have this pattern, and I don't know if he's alluded to this earlier in the book, you know, the pattern of kind of 6 and 7. You see it as well in other areas, as in like, you know, Shemitah, which is the 7th year. And now it's kind of broadening out. And he's saying that actually this whole pattern of 6 plus Shabbat is also broader, and it represents 7 millennia of history. Okay. So every week, Shabbat gives us a taste of what it will be like to live in this redeemed world, a world of harmony suffused with wisdom and faith. As Shabbat redeems the day of the week, the Messianic era redeems the preceding 6,000 years of human history. So each of the 7 of those patterns has the same function. Okay, it takes all the 6 and it changes it to this redeeming quality, to this harmonious presence. And so too in the 7th millennia, which is where we're headed. The Talmud divides these 6,000 years into 3 distinct eras. So the first 2 millennia are the years of chaos. So this would be, I think he's going to explain it actually. Yeah, he'll explain it, so we'll get there. The years of chaos. The next 2 millennia are the years of Torah. And the final 2 millennia are the years of potential redemption. So let's explain it, and then we'll kind of go into a bit more detail. But the years of chaos. Okay, so what are these? So they predate the birth of Abraham, who championed belief in God and ethical living. So these are the first 2,000 years, from the beginning of creation until the story of Abraham. They're characterized as chaotic because without Torah principles and morality, the world lacked direction, coherence, and purpose. The years of Torah begin with Abraham's influence on the world in the year 2000 from creation, encompass the divine revelation and the giving of the Torah at Sinai, and culminate with the distillation and transcription
£30 on there.
of the oral Torah.
What's that?
Okay. And transcription of the oral Torah given by God at Sinai alongside the written Torah in the form of the Mishnah in around the year 4000 from creation. We then entered the 3rd era of history, the 2,000 years most appropriate for redemption, during which time the Messiah could arrive at any moment, but no later than 6,000 years. So let's just go over that again. So we have the whole of, from the beginning of time is kind of divided into 6,000 years, right? The first 2,000 years of this time is chaos, which kind of predates the giving of the Torah. The next 2,000 years is when Abraham begins, which is his influence, the beginning of monotheism and the beginning of Hashem's presence being made known to humans at that time. And then we have the final section, which is actually where we are. And that era is the time which is appropriate for redemption, during which time Mashiach could come at any moment. So the Jewish year currently is the year 5,784. So if you think about it, it's what this is saying is that Mashiach has to come by the year 7,000. We know that. That's evidence in our text. So we are actually very, very close to that. And at any point during this time, Mashiach, this messianic age, the 7th millennia, could arrive. What I find really interesting is there's a paragraph in, a pasuk in the first few pasukim of the Torah. In fact, it's the second or third pasuk of the Torah, which I should have in front of me, but I don't have it in front of me. But that the first pasuk talks about, describes how Hashem created the world. And it says that Hashem, what was there before Hashem created anything? There was just this emptiness. And in the pasuk, it describes different words. It has different words to describe that emptiness. And it says, Tohu vavohu choshech al pnei tehom, that the world was empty and barren and dark, and it was just like deep, like there was nothing there. And there's a very famous medrash that takes each of these words and says each of these words describes one of the exiles of the Jewish people. So tohu, which is this emptiness, is reflecting the exile of Bavel, the first exile of the Jewish people. The next word, vohu, is reflecting Persia, the exile of Persia. Choshech, which is darkness, reflects the Greek exile, right, which we think about Hanukkah time. That's the most famous one. People go, oh yeah, Choshech, the darkness. We have to light the Hanukkah candles to, take away the darkness. And the fourth one, Al Pnei Tehom, reflects Edom, Rome, but really where we kind of currently sitting. And the current exile that we're in is described in this midrash as a bottomless pit. So it's almost like endless. It's like the depth. It just keeps going and going and going. And if we think about it, it's just been going and going and going. We go to museums, don't we, about the Romans, and it just feels like a very, very long time ago. And yet we're still kind of like trudging along where we are. And sometimes it can really feel a bit like hopeless. Like, are we really ever going to get to this point, get to this destination where things improve? And I think, especially nowadays, it can feel pretty dark, and we can feel pretty hopeless where we currently are in this kind of broader lens of humanity. But what Shabbat is coming to tell us, right, is that there is this destination, that we are headed somewhere. So if we go back to the book, which is the next paragraph, the model of creation. 6 days followed by Shabbat is therefore the model for all human history. In fact, each day of creation corresponds to each of the 6 millennia of history. Shabbat is not just a day that affects us as individuals or even as communities. It provides the focal point around which time and all of human history revolves. By establishing that humanity has a destination, that history in its current form of struggle and uncertainty is not endless, God gives our world purpose. History isn't an aimless meandering, it is a purposeful journey towards an endpoint, a glorious culmination in which humanity finally attains the values of Shabbat in their fullest expression. The values that will permeate the world when this great Shabbat of history finally arrives: a universal awareness and embrace of God's presence, Torah wisdom, peace, and kindness, among others, give us a vision to strive for. in our as yet unredeemed world. So it's actually really, really hopeful. Yeah. So sometimes we just feel like going nowhere. We're just stuck in this like cycle of, and it's so difficult at the moment, but there is a destination, in the same way that every day of your week should be with Shabbat in mind. You wake up on a Sunday and you think, I need to invite guests for Shabbat. Monday, I should probably think about what I'm gonna cook. Wednesday, I'm doing my shopping. Thursday, maybe I'm cooking. Maybe I'm learning something for Shabbat. So the whole week is gearing up. So too, again, thinking in our concentric circles, this broader vision is also gearing up towards this final Shabbat. So the vision at the bottom of page 136 is also a supremely optimistic one. By guaranteeing that history will culminate in an era of peace, faith, and wisdom, God gives us strength to march through history with courage and hope. At the very earliest moments of creation, we read that God created light and darkness. The Midrash says this light and dark refers to the actions of the righteous and the wicked, respectively. Surprisingly, the Midrash asks whether God prefers the light or the darkness, and answers by citing the verse, he saw the light and it was good, meaning God prefers the deeds of the righteous. Shouldn't this be obvious? Okay. So understand the question that, obviously Hashem saw that the light was good. Obviously the deeds of the righteous Hashem thought were good. It should be obvious. But a way to understand the Midrash question is this: will God leave history to chance and let the forces of light and darkness battle for supremacy with no predetermined outcome? And the unequivocal answer is no. He saw the light and it was good. But somehow, by the end of history, the forces of light will triumph. God is giving us a guarantee that he will never let the world disappear into the darkness of a moral abyss, into spiritual oblivion. In the end, he will ensure that light will prevail and history will culminate in the values of Shabbat. And I think one thing which we actually say in our Kabbalah Shabbat davening, right, which we in the Chadodi, is we say the word Sof Ma'aseh B'Machshava Tefillah, that the actions of creating Shabbat came at the end. So Hashem goes through the whole act of creating absolutely everything else, and only at the end he creates Shabbat. But that verse says, okay, it was at the end of his creation, but b'machshava tefillah, it was the first in thought. So Hashem, the whole point of creation was to get to Shabbat. It was the first thing that Hashem thought about when creating the world, in the same way that when we begin our week, should be gearing up towards Shabbat the whole week. And so too, when we think about like despair, or, and how endless is this exile that we're in this current situation, we should feel like hope that yes, okay, that's at the end point, but really like this is where we're heading. We should have hope, we should have optimism that light will prevail, that good will prevail. And sometimes it's really hard to even define what that is, and people are really struggling to define what is good and what is bad, or what is right and what is wrong. But we know that Hashem ultimately does know what is right and what is good, and that which is right and good will prevail. And that's the message of this chapter, I think. So I will pass on to Howard, who's going to say